The ship landed on Thesson IV just as the twin suns were setting over the purple ocean. Kira Vasquez pressed her face against the window and watched the water change colors, orange, then pink, then a deep violet that seemed to glow from within. She had never seen anything like it. Earth's oceans were blue and green and sometimes gray, but never purple, never glowing. "First time off-world?" the pilot asked. He was a Mundari, nearly 8 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His voice was kind, but Kira could hear something else in it, something like pity. "Yes," she said. "You will do fine," he told her. "The Velkori are good hosts, very civilized." Kira nodded and said nothing. She knew what he really meant. He meant that humans were new to space. He meant that humans were small and weak and slow. He meant that she would need civilized hosts, because she could not survive on her own. She touched the pen in her pocket. It was made of metal, heavy and solid, with her grandfather's initials carved into the side. He had given it to her before she left Earth. He had not said much. He never said much. But he had held her hands in his old, scarred fingers and looked into her eyes. "Remember what I taught you," he had said. "Remember that you are human. That means something." She had not asked him what it meant. She already knew. The academy was beautiful. It sat on a cliff above the ocean, built from white stone that seemed to grow from the rock itself. The Velkori were artists and builders. They had created something wonderful here. Kira walked through the halls and felt very small. The other students watched her pass. She saw Chirics with their hard shells and clicking mandibles. She saw Mundari who towered over her like mountains. She saw Velkori with their translucent skin, their 4 eyes, their graceful movements. They were all beautiful in their own ways. They were all stronger than her, faster than her, more impressive than her, and they all looked at her like she was a pet that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Her room was small but comfortable. She unpacked her few belongings and sat on the bed. Through the window, she could see the purple ocean stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, Earth was spinning in the darkness. Her home, her people, everything she knew. She was 17 years old. She was alone, and she was very, very far from home. The first day of classes was difficult. The other students had been at the academy for years. They knew each other. They had friends and enemies and histories. Kira was an outsider in every possible way. Her first class was comparative species biology, taught by a very old Velkori named Counselor Thrin. He had gray skin instead of the usual blue, and his 4 eyes were clouded with age, but his voice was strong, and the other students listened to him with respect. "Today we will discuss survival adaptations," he announced. "Every species has evolved certain traits that help them survive. These traits define who we are." He began with the Chirics. Their exoskeletons could stop bullets. Their compound eyes could see in almost every direction at once. Their mandibles could crush bone. Then he moved to the Mundari. They could regenerate entire limbs within days. Their 4 arms made them devastating in combat. Their thick skin could withstand extreme temperatures. The Velkori were next. They could breathe underwater. Their 4 eyes could see wavelengths of light that other species could not. They could communicate through color changes in their skin. Finally, Counselor Thrin turned to Kira. The entire class turned with him. 30 pairs of eyes, all looking at her, all waiting. "Humans," Thrin said slowly, "are perhaps the most unusual species in the galaxy." Kira felt her face grow hot. She kept her eyes on her desk. "They have no natural weapons," Thrin continued. "No claws, no fangs, no venom. They have no natural armor. Their skin is soft and tears easily. They cannot regenerate. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot breathe underwater." Someone laughed. Kira did not look up to see who. "What humans do have," Thrin said, "is persistence. They evolved on a planet where they were not the strongest or the fastest, so they learned to chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could run for hours, for days, following an animal until it simply gave up and died." More laughter. The Chirik student beside Kira clicked his mandibles loudly. "Persistence hunting," Thrin finished. "A curious adaptation. Not particularly impressive, but effective in its own way." The lesson moved on. Kira took notes with her pen while the other students used their neural transcribers. They glanced at her primitive tool and whispered to each other. She ignored them. After class, A group of students blocked her path in the hallway. There were 5 of them. 2 Chiriks, 2 Velkhori, and 1 Mundari. The Mundari seemed to be the leader. "Human," he said, looking down at her from his great height. "I am Krell. I wanted to welcome you to our academy." His voice was not welcoming at all. "Thank you," Kira said quietly. "We have never had a human here before," Krell continued. "We were not sure you would survive the journey. Your species is so fragile." The others laughed. "I survived," Kira said. "Yes, for now." Krell leaned closer. His breath smelled like copper. "But accidents happen at this academy. The cliffs are very high. The water is very cold. A soft little human could easily fall." Kira looked up at him. She was not afraid. Her grandfather had taught her about fear. He had taught her that fear was a tool, not a master. He had taught her that the only thing to fear was not being prepared. And Kira was always prepared. "I will be careful," she said calmly. Krell seemed disappointed by her lack of fear. He stepped back and waved his forearms dismissively. "See that you are," he said. "We would hate to lose our little Earth pet." They walked away laughing. Kira watched them go. Her hand rested in her pocket, touching the cold metal of her pen. Her grandfather's pen. Her grandfather, who had survived 3 wars, who had killed more enemies than he could count, who had looked at her with his hard, steady eyes and told her that being human meant something. She walked to her room and sat by the window. The suns had fully set now, and the purple ocean was dark, but she could see lights moving beneath the surface. Velkhori cities, built underwater, glowing like dreams. It was beautiful, it was strange, and it was dangerous, but Kira was not afraid. She was human, and her grandfather had taught her that humans had survived worse than this. Much worse. She took out her pen and began to write in her journal. She wrote about the academy. She wrote about the other students. She wrote about Counselor Thrin and his lesson on survival adaptations. And she wrote a promise to herself. She would show them what humans could really do. She did not know how soon that chance would come. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Kira learned to navigate the long hallways and the strange customs of her fellow students. She learned which foods would make her sick and which ones were safe. She learned to ignore the whispers and the laughter that followed her everywhere. She was still alone. No one wanted to be friends with the human girl. She was too different, too weak, too strange. But Kira did not mind. She used the time to study. She watched the other species carefully. She learned their strengths and their weaknesses. She learned how they moved, how they fought, how they thought. Her grandfather had taught her that knowledge was the greatest weapon. "You cannot change what you are," he had told her once, "but you can learn everything about what they are, and then you can use it." So Kira watched and learned. The Chiriks were strong, but their exoskeletons had joints. Soft places between the hard plates where the shell was thin. The Mundari were huge, but they were slow. Their 4 arms made them powerful but clumsy. The Velkhori were fast, but they depended on their underwater abilities. On land, they were weaker than they looked. Every species had weaknesses. Every species had gaps in their armor. You just had to know where to look. It was a normal morning when everything changed. Counselor Thrin was teaching a lesson about the nervous systems of different species. He was explaining how Mundari could feel pain in all 4 arms at once, which made injuries very difficult for them to handle. Kira was taking notes. The Chirik student beside her was clicking softly, probably bored. The Velkhori students in the front row were changing colors slightly, a sign that they were paying attention. Everything was normal. Then the wall exploded. The blast threw Kira from her seat. She hit the floor hard and rolled, covering her head with her arms. Pieces of white stone rained down around her. Dust filled the air. Students were screaming. When she looked up, she saw them. They were tall and thin, with bodies made of segments like insects, but covered in oily black armor. Each one had 4 arms that ended in claws like curved knives. Their heads were flat and wide, with dozens of tiny eyes that gleamed red in the dust. Vreth. Kira had read about them in her studies. They were raiders from the outer rim of the galaxy. They attacked schools and colonies and ships. They took prisoners and sold them as slaves. They were cruel and fast, and they never showed mercy. There were 6 of them standing in the hole where the wall used to be. Everything happened very fast. The first Vreth moved toward the nearest student. It was one of the Chiriks, the one who always clicked his mandibles at Kira. His exoskeleton was supposed to be strong enough to stop bullets. The Vreth's claw went through it like paper. The Chirix fell and did not move again. A Mundari student named Brill tried to fight. He swung all 4 of his massive arms at the nearest raider. But the Vreth were faster. A blade flashed in the dusty air, and Brell's throat opened in a spray of dark blood. His regeneration would not save him. He would be dead before his body could even begin to heal. Counselor Thrin moved toward a panel on the wall. His old hands were shaking, but his movements were steady. He pressed something, and Kira heard a faint alarm begin to wail somewhere in the distance. An emergency signal. Help would come, but help would not come fast enough. The leader of the Vreth, larger than the others with scars covering his armor, walked calmly to Counselor Thrin. The old teacher turned to face him. He did not beg. He did not run. He simply stood there, accepting what was coming. The leader's blade punched through Thrin's chest. The old Velkhori made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and then he collapsed. His 4 eyes stared at nothing. Kira watched from the floor. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her hands were shaking, but something strange was happening inside her body. Something old, something that had been sleeping in her blood for millions of years. Adrenaline. Her grandfather had told her about this. The human body's ancient response to danger, when humans were still living in caves, when every day was a fight for survival. Their bodies had developed a special ability. In moments of extreme danger, their brains released chemicals that changed everything. Pain became distant. Fear became focus. The world became slow and clear. Kira felt it now. Her shaking stopped. Her vision sharpened. She could see every detail of the room with perfect clarity. The dust particles floating in the air, the blood spreading on the floor, the Vreth moving among the students like wolves among sheep. The other students were frozen. Some were crying. Some were screaming. Some were trying to hide under their desks. Their species had different responses to danger. The Chirix curled into balls, protecting their soft undersides. The Mundari tried to fight, and died. The Velkhori tried to run, and were caught. But humans had a different response. Humans had spent millions of years being hunted by things with bigger teeth and sharper claws. They had learned something that no other species in the galaxy had learned. When you cannot run and you cannot hide, you fight. You fight with everything you have. You fight with whatever is in your hands. You fight until you win, or until you die. There is no surrender. There is no giving up. There is only the fight. The Vreth leader was walking through the room now, counting the survivors. 17 students were still alive, huddled together near the windows. The raiders had already checked outside. More Vreth were waiting there, blocking any escape. The leader stopped in front of the students and made a sound that might have been laughter. "Young ones," he said in broken common language. "Worth much. Rich families pay. You come with us now. No fight. You live. Fight. You die like others." He turned slowly, checking the room for any threats. His many eyes swept over the bodies on the floor, the broken furniture, the terrified students. His gaze passed over Kira without stopping. She was small. She was sitting on the floor, covered in dust and blood that was not her own. She was holding something in her hand, a small metal stick, some kind of primitive writing tool. Not a threat, not worth noticing. The leader turned away and began giving orders to his soldiers. "Bind them," he commanded. "Start with the Mundari. They are strongest." His soldiers moved forward, pulling restraints from their belts. Kira stood up slowly. No one was watching her. No one cared about the weak human girl with her primitive little pen. Her grandfather's voice was in her head, calm and steady. "The moment they look away is the moment you move. Never hesitate. Never warn them. Never give them a chance to react. Just move." The nearest Vreth was 3 steps away. He was reaching for a crying Velkhori student. His back was to Kira. The soft joints between his neck armor were exposed. Kira took a breath, and then she moved. The first second was the longest. Kira crossed the 3 steps to the nearest Vreth in less than a heartbeat. Her body moved without thought. This was not something she had to decide. This was something her ancestors had built into her bones over millions of years of survival. The Vreth's neck had joints, gaps between the armor plates where the black shell was thin. Her grandfather had taught her about joints. He had taught her that every armor has weak points. You just had to hit them hard enough. Her pen was made of solid metal. It was designed to last for decades. The tip was pointed and sharp. She had used it to write letters and take notes and draw pictures in the margins of her books. Now she used it for something else. The pen drove into the soft space between the wreath's neck plates. She put her whole body behind it. 50 pounds of force focused on a point smaller than her fingernail. The metal went through flesh and muscle and found something important. The wreath made a wet sound and collapsed. One down. The second brought chaos. The nearest wreath turned toward her. He was fast, faster than she had expected. His claw came up, curved like a sickle, aimed at her chest. But Kira was already moving. Her body ducked under the swing before her mind could even process what was happening. Humans were small. That was what everyone said. Humans were weak and soft and small. But small meant something else too. Small meant low to the ground. Small meant able to slip under attacks meant for larger targets. Small meant able to get inside the reach of longer arms. She was inside his guard now, close enough to smell the strange chemical scent of his body. Her pen found his eye, one of the few places on his body that was not covered by armor. The tip went in deep. He screamed in a frequency that she could not hear, but she could feel it vibrating in her chest. He fell backward, clawing at his face. 2 down. The third second was pure violence. 2 more wreath rushed her at the same time. They were soldiers. They had done this many times before. They knew how to fight together, how to corner prey, how to kill efficiently, but they had never fought a human before. Kira grabbed the blade from the first wreath's body. It was too heavy for her. The grip was made for 4-fingered hands, not 5. The balance was wrong. A proper fighter would have struggled with it, but Kira was not a proper fighter. Her grandfather had not taught her to fight properly. He had taught her to survive. Pretty fighting is for movies. He had told her once. Real fighting is ugly. Real fighting is fast and mean and dirty. You do not try to win points. You try to end things as quickly as possible. The blade caught the first wreath across the throat as she spun. She did not try to block the second one's attack. She simply was not there when it arrived. Her body dropped low, sliding under his swing, and the blade came up into his stomach. 4 down. The 4th second was about geometry. The 5th wreath was behind her. She knew this without looking. Her grandfather had taught her about spatial awareness. Always know where everyone is, he had said. Always know who is behind you. Always know where the exits are. Your eyes can only look one direction, but your mind can see everything. She could not reach him with the blade. He was too far away. But she still had her pen. It was covered in blood now, slippery in her fingers, but she held it tight. Her grandfather had taught her to throw knives when she was 12 years old. The pen was not a knife. It was too light, too thin, not balanced for throwing. But at this distance, it did not matter. Physics was physics. If you threw something hard enough and aimed it well enough, it would hit its target. The pen spun through the air and buried itself in the wreath's throat. He grabbed at it, choking, and fell. 5 down. The 5th second was for the leader. He was the largest of them, the strongest. He had killed Counselor Thrin without effort. He had walked through the classroom like he owned it. Now he was staring at her. His dozens of tiny eyes were all focused on the small human girl who had just killed 5 of his soldiers in 4 seconds. She could see something in those eyes that she had not expected. Fear. He was afraid of her. But fear made people dangerous. Fear made them fast and desperate and willing to do anything. The leader swung his blade at her with all his strength. It was a killing blow. If it hit her, she would be cut in half. It hit her. The blade sliced across her left arm, opening a deep cut from her elbow to her wrist. Blood sprayed into the air. The pain was incredible, or it would have been incredible, if she could feel it. Adrenaline blocked pain. This was another gift from her ancestors. When humans were fighting for their lives, their bodies turned off the pain signals. They could take wounds that would stop other species and keep fighting as if nothing had happened. They could push through injuries that should have killed them. Kira felt the impact of the blade, but the pain was distant, like a memory of pain, like something that was happening to someone else. She did not stop. She did not slow down. The leader was still completing his swing when she reached him. Her stolen blade drove up under his chin, through the soft tissue of his throat, into his brain. He looked at her with those tiny red eyes. He tried to say something, but only blood came out. Then he fell. 6 down. The classroom was silent. Dust hung in the air. Blood pooled on the floor. 6 Vreath bodies lay scattered like broken toys. Kira stood in the middle of it all, breathing hard. Blood ran down her arm and dripped from her fingers. Her whole body was shaking now, the adrenaline still pumping through her veins. She looked at the other students. They were staring at her, all of them. 17 pairs of eyes, wide with shock and terror and something else, something she had never seen on their faces before. Respect, or maybe it was fear. The Chirix who always clicked his mandibles was pressed against the wall. His exoskeleton had cracked earlier, but he was still alive. His mandibles were moving, but no sound came out. He was trying to speak. Finally, he managed a single word. How? Kira looked down at the pen still buried in the dead Vreath's throat. Her grandfather's pen, her grandfather's gift, her grandfather's teachings. She pulled it free and wiped it on her shirt. I am human, she said simply. Then her knees buckled, and she sat down hard on the floor. The adrenaline was starting to fade. The pain in her arm was becoming real. She could feel her heart pounding, feel the blood flowing out of her wound, feel the weight of what she had just done pressing down on her shoulders. She had killed 6 people. No, not people. Raiders, slavers. Killers who had murdered her teacher and her classmates, who had come here to take them all and sell them into slavery. She had done what she had to do. Her grandfather's voice was quiet in her mind. Do not feel guilty for surviving. Feel grateful, and then feel ready, because the next fight is always coming. From somewhere outside, she heard shouting. The other Vreath, the ones who had been waiting outside to catch anyone who tried to escape. They had heard the silence. They knew something had gone wrong. Kira gripped her pen and waited, but the next fight never came. Instead, she heard screaming, Vreath screaming, and then gunfire, and then silence. The Galactic Response Fleet had arrived. The soldiers came through the broken wall with weapons raised and armor gleaming. They expected to find a massacre. They expected to find terrified students and triumphant raiders. They expected to have to fight their way in and save whoever was still alive. They did not expect to find a small human girl sitting calmly among 6 dead Vreath, applying pressure to her own wound with a piece of her uniform. The squad leader was a Velkhori captain named Selene. She had been in the military for 30 years. She had seen battles and massacres and things that still woke her up at night. She thought she had seen everything. She had not seen anything like this. Secure the room, she ordered, her voice steady despite her shock. Her soldiers spread out, checking the bodies, making sure the Vreath were really dead. They were. Selene walked slowly toward the human girl. She was young, 17, maybe 18 years old. Small, even for her species. Her arm was badly wounded, blood still flowing despite the pressure she was applying. Her face was pale and splattered with blood that was not her own. Her eyes were steady, calm, the eyes of a soldier after battle. Are you injured anywhere else? Selene asked. No, the girl said. Just the arm. The cut is deep, but it missed the major blood vessels. I will be fine. She said it like she was reporting the weather. Like she had not just killed 6 Vreath raiders with her bare hands and a writing tool. A medic came over and tried to examine her arm. The girl pulled away. I need to stay conscious, she said. I need to know the threat is gone. Selene looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. The threat is gone, she said. We found 8 more Vreath outside. They are all dead. The girl frowned slightly. I did not kill the ones outside. No, they killed each other. Selene glanced at the bodies on the floor. When everything went quiet in here, when their leader's signal went dark, they panicked. Vreath are paranoid by nature. They assumed they had been betrayed. They turned on each other. The girl nodded like this made perfect sense. Your arm, Selene said gently. Please let the medic help you. First tell me that my classmates are safe. Selene looked around the room. The other students were being checked by medics and security officers. Some were crying. Some were in shock. One Chirix was clicking the same words over and over, staring at nothing. They are safe, Selene said. Because of you. The girl finally relaxed. She let the medic take her arm and begin treating the wound. She did not flinch when the numbing spray was applied. She did not react when the flesh was sealed back together with medical gel. She simply watched with those steady, calm eyes. Admiral Vrex arrived 20 minutes later. He was the highest-ranking officer in the sector. a Valkyrie who had commanded fleets and won battles that were studied in military academies across the galaxy. He was old and scarred and wise. He walked into the classroom and stopped. His 4 eyes swept over the scene, the broken wall, the blood on the floor, the covered bodies of the students who had not survived, and the 6 Vreth corpses, arranged in a rough circle around a single point, the point where the human girl had stood. "Report," he said quietly. Captain Selen stepped forward. 14 Vreth raiders attacked the school. 6 breached this classroom. The human student killed all 6 in approximately 5 seconds. The other 8 raiders were outside. When they lost contact with the assault team, they turned on each other. Admiral Vrex walked closer to the Vreth bodies. He studied them carefully. The wounds, the positions, the way they had fallen. 5 seconds, he repeated. "Yes, Admiral. We have security footage. The technical team is analyzing it now." Vrex turned to look at the human girl. She was sitting on a bench near the window, her arm bandaged, a medic still hovering nearby. She looked up at him without fear. "What is your name?" he asked. "Kira Vasquez. You killed 6 Vreth raiders, Kira Vasquez, in 5 seconds, with what appears to be a primitive writing instrument." "A pen," she said. "It belonged to my grandfather. Your grandfather must be an interesting man." Something flickered in her eyes. Pride, maybe. Or love. "He was a soldier. He taught me things." "What things?" Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He taught me that humans are not prey. He taught me that we survived millions of years on a planet that was trying to kill us every single day. He taught me that we do not have claws or armor or venom. So we learned to fight differently. We learned to use tools. We learned to use our minds. We learned to never, ever give up." Admiral Vrex studied her for a long moment. In his many years of military service, he had met warriors from dozens of species. He had seen Cherik soldiers shatter walls with their fists. He had seen Mundari regenerate from wounds that should have killed them. He had seen his own people, the Valkyrie, use their underwater abilities to devastating effect. But he had never seen anything like this small, soft, human girl. "The Vreth are not easy to kill," he said. "Their armor is thick. Their reflexes are fast. They are trained warriors. They underestimated me," Kira said simply. "Everyone does. That was their mistake." "Yes." Admiral Vrex nodded slowly. He turned to Captain Selen. "I want all footage of this incident classified at the highest level. No one sees it without my personal authorization, and I want to speak with the analysts as soon as they have finished their review." Selen saluted. "Yes, Admiral?" Vrex turned back to Kira. "You will need to give a full report, but that can wait until you have recovered. For now, rest. You have earned it." "I do not need rest," Kira said. "I need to know what happens next." "What do you mean?" "The Vreth will want revenge. They lost 14 warriors here today. They will not forget that. They will come back. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next month. But they will come." Admiral Vrex blinked his 4 eyes slowly. This girl was 17 years old. She had just survived a massacre. She had killed 6 enemy soldiers in hand-to-hand combat, and her first thought was about the future. About the next threat. "You think like a soldier," he said. "My grandfather taught me to think like a survivor," she replied. "Soldiers follow orders. Survivors do whatever they have to do." The Admiral smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized something important. "I think," he said quietly, "that the galaxy has made a serious mistake about your species. We looked at humans and saw soft skin and no claws and slow reflexes. We thought you were weak." Kira looked at him steadily. Blood was still drying on her face. Her arm was wrapped in bandages. Her hands were trembling slightly now, the adrenaline finally fading from her system. "We are not weak," she said. "We are just different. We do not fight like other species. We do not think like other species. But that does not make us less dangerous. It makes us more." She stood up slowly, wincing as her wounded arm moved. "My grandfather told me something once," she continued. "He said that the most dangerous animal on Earth was never the lion or the shark or the snake. It was always the human, because humans are the only animal that can look at something bigger and stronger and deadlier than itself and say, 'I can beat that. I just need to figure out how.'" She picked up her pen from the bench. It had been cleaned by the medics. The blood was gone. It looked like an ordinary writing tool again, but Admiral Vrex knew better now. He knew that in the right hands, anything could be a weapon. And in human hands, everything was. Rest now, he said gently. We will speak more later. Kira nodded and let the medic lead her away. Admiral Vrex watched her go. Then he turned back to the 6 bodies on the floor. 5 seconds, he thought. 6 kills. With a pen. He had a lot to think about. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every news service from the core worlds to the outer rim was reporting the story. A Vreth raider attack on a prestigious academy. 14 raiders dead. And at the center of it all, a 17-year-old human girl who had killed 6 of them in 5 seconds with nothing but a writing pen. The footage leaked, despite Admiral Vrex's classification order. Someone always talked. Someone always shared. And this footage was too incredible to keep secret. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds watched the security recording. They watched the small human girl sit quietly while the Vreth killed her classmates. They watched her stand up when no one was looking. They watched her move. The military analysts slowed the footage down to 1/10 speed. Even then, it was hard to follow. She moved like water, like smoke, like something that was not quite real. One moment she was standing still. The next moment she was surrounded by bodies. 5 seconds, 6 kills, a pen. The galaxy had many questions. The Chiric's high command wanted to know how a soft-skinned human had killed warriors whose armor could stop bullets. The Mundari Council wanted to understand how such a small being could move so fast. The Velkori Science Academy wanted to study the human stress response that had turned a student into a killing machine. Everyone wanted answers. Kira gave none. She refused all interviews. She ignored all requests for meetings. She simply returned to classes after her arm healed and continued her studies as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. The other students no longer laughed at her. They no longer whispered behind her back. They no longer blocked her path in the hallways. They were afraid of her. Even Krell, the Mundari who had threatened her on her first day, avoided her eyes when they passed. He had seen the footage. He had seen what she could do. He knew now that all his size and strength would mean nothing against someone who could move like that, think like that, kill like that. The Academy brought in a new teacher for comparative species biology. Her name was Counselor Mira, a younger Velkori, who had studied human history extensively. She had requested the assignment after seeing the footage. She wanted to understand. Her first lesson was about survival adaptations, but it was very different from Counselor Thrin's version. We have discussed the strengths of many species, she began, looking around the classroom at her students. The Chiric's exoskeleton, the Mundari regeneration, the Velkori underwater abilities. But we have made a mistake. We have been looking at survival the wrong way. She activated a holographic display. It showed a planet, blue and green and white. Earth. This is the human homeworld, Mira continued. Class 12 dangerous. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, unpredictable weather, toxic plants, venomous animals, predators, diseases, natural disasters. The students watched the display cycle through images. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods, fires, plagues. Every single thing on this planet was trying to kill humans, Mira said. Every single day, for millions of years. The weather could kill them. The water could kill them. The food could kill them. The animals could kill them. Even other humans could kill them. She paused and looked at Kira, who sat quietly in the back row. And yet they survived, Mira continued. Not because they were the strongest. Not because they were the fastest. Not because they had natural weapons or armor. They survived because they were the most adaptable, the most creative, the most determined. She changed the display. Now it showed human evolution. Small, weak primates gradually becoming something else. Something that walked upright. Something that used tools. Something that refused to die. Humans have no claws, Mira said. So they made claws out of stone. They have no armor. So they made armor out of animal skins. They have no venom. So they learned which plants were poisonous and put that poison on their weapons. More images. Humans hunting mammoths. Humans building fires. Humans crossing oceans in wooden boats. Humans landing on their moon. Humans reaching for the stars. They were never the most powerful species on their planet, Mira said, but they became the dominant one, not by being stronger, but by being smarter, by being more creative, by being willing to do whatever it took to survive. She turned off the display and looked at her students. What happened in this classroom 3 weeks ago was not an accident. It was not luck. It was not magic. It was the result of millions of years of evolution. Kira Vasquez did what her ancestors had been doing since the dawn of her species. She found herself in danger, and she refused to die. The classroom was silent. Every student was listening now, even the ones who had never paid attention before. Other species freeze when danger comes, Mira continued. It is a natural response. Your bodies are designed to protect themselves by becoming still, by becoming invisible, by hoping the threat will pass. But humans are different. When danger comes, their bodies prepare to fight. Their hearts beat faster. Their muscles grow stronger. Their pain disappears. They become, for a short time, something more than they normally are. She walked slowly to the back of the room, to where Kira sat. This is what we missed, Mira said quietly. This is what we did not understand. Humans are not weak. They are not soft. They are not helpless. They are the survivors of a death world. And survivors do not give up. Survivors do not surrender. Survivors fight until they win or until they die. Kira looked up at her teacher. Her face was calm. Her eyes were steady. The same eyes that had watched 6 Vreth die in 5 seconds. Thank you, counselor, she said simply. Mira nodded and returned to the front of the room. There are 12 new human students joining our academy this term, she announced. Applications from humans increased by 300% after the incident. Every academy in the sector has requested human students. She smiled slightly. I suspect the galaxy is about to learn much more about this remarkable species, and I suspect many of our assumptions will need to be revised. After class, Kira walked to the window and looked out at the purple ocean. The suns were setting again, painting the water in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful. It would always be beautiful. But she was not thinking about the beauty. She was thinking about her grandfather, about his old, scarred hands, about his steady eyes, about the lessons he had taught her in their small backyard on Earth. You are human, he had told her. That means something. It means you come from a long line of survivors, people who faced impossible odds and refused to give up, people who looked at death and said, not today. People who turned rocks into weapons and made fire from sticks and crossed oceans in boats held together with rope and hope. She touched the pen in her pocket. His pen, his gift, his legacy. Never let them tell you that you are weak, he had said. Never let them tell you that you are helpless. Never let them tell you that you cannot survive. Because you are human, and humans have survived worse than anything this galaxy can throw at them. Kira smiled slightly. The galaxy was watching her species now. The galaxy was paying attention. The galaxy was starting to understand what humans really were. Not the weakest species in the known universe. Not soft little creatures who needed protection, but survivors, fighters, the children of a death world who had clawed their way to the stars through blood and fire and sheer stubborn refusal to die. The pen was still in her pocket, just a writing tool, just a gift from her grandfather, just a reminder that in human hands, anything could be a weapon. And humans had been making weapons for a very, very long time. She turned away from the window and walked back to her room. Tomorrow there would be more classes, more lessons, more chances to show the galaxy what humans could do. She was ready. She had always been ready. She was human, and that meant something.